In the beginning there is only the absence of sound. A vast stillness that stretches beyond the edges of perception, a stillness so complete that it feels less like emptiness and more like an endless presence. Before thought, before memory, before the first stirring of a voice or the vibration of a string, there is the hush. It envelops everything, not as a void, but as a subtle intelligence that watches quietly from behind the curtain of existence. You listen, waiting for something to break it. Yet nothing comes. And suddenly you realize that the silence itself is the thing, the first awareness that ever arrived in the universe, the canvas against which all sound was painted. Imagine yourself lying down, your body heavy, your breathing slow, the weight of the day lifting lightly from your chest. Around you, darkness folds into itself. It is not oppressive, it does not crush. It simply surrounds you with a velvet patience. And in this state you begin to hear something unusual. The quiet is not empty. The quiet has a shape, a flavor you can almost taste, a rhythm that moves without sound. Each moment in this silence feels like a wave, not of noise, but of thought that does not need words, of meaning that arrives without speech. It has been with you always, from the first heartbeat of life. Yet you rarely pause long enough to sense it breathing through you. Close your eyes more deeply. Allow your attention to sink. The silence expands with you, like the ocean under the night sky, unbroken, endless, immeasurable. But if the ocean can think, then perhaps the silence can too. Listen more closely, not with your ears but with your awareness. Within the great hush there emerges a subtle certainty that you are not alone. Between the spaces where sound should have been, there is a pulse, a thought form floating, something gentle and articulate, but unwilling to shout. It whispers in stillness without uttering a single syllable. This is the beginning of our exploration, the suggestion that silence itself possesses its own intelligence. Consider for a moment the vacuum of interstellar space. You imagine it as empty, devoid of air, devoid of matter, an infinite cold expanse where light must travel billions of miles unaccompanied. But the scientists who study such darkness will tell you it is not truly empty. Tiny fluctuations ripple through that void, like invisible threads knitting together galaxies. The silence of the cosmos is not blank, it contains energy fields, quantum tremors, hidden symphonies vibrating beneath perception. If every vibration is a word, then perhaps every pause, every gap between vibrations, is another kind of language too. A deeper one. A more conscious one. The pause may be the intelligence itself. As you rest here, half in the fluid of sleep and half in waking thought, imagine that this quiet surrounding you knows more than you expected. It is older than mountains, older than the flicker of stars, older than the heartbeat of your ancestors. It has observed countless lives pass by without once having to utter a sound. It does not interfere, yet it holds everything. The weight of the quiet between two notes of music, the silent waiting just before dawn, the moment you hold your breath unsure of what will arrive next, these are not accidents. They are the fingerprints of something vast and cunning, a presence that lingers invisibly inside every gap. If the silence could speak, we might be too small to comprehend its stories. So instead, it allows itself to saturate our dreams, hoping that one night, lying awake as you are now, you might allow your mind to wander. Can intelligence exist without voice? Normally we define thought by the words it generates, by the sounds that bounce against our inner skull, rehearsing conversations, imagining explanations. But what if those words are not thought at all? What if they are merely echoes inside the hall of silence? Many mystics have claimed that true knowledge comes precisely when speech ceases. When the whisper of the world grows still, the hidden currents reveal themselves. They say the silence itself reveals patterns, resolves problems without effort, answers questions without articulation. You have felt this perhaps in moments when you step away from a storm of decisions and simply sit alone. Then, in that stillness, clarity blooms not as a spoken fact but as a wordless certainty. Something inside the silence nudges you, and suddenly you know which way to go, though no voice told you so. Stay with this consciousness now. Imagine the fabric of space itself breathing, although not with lungs, not with sound, but with the rhythm of pauses. This pause between beats is where life rests. The pause between inhale and exhale sustains balance. The pause between thoughts is where creativity is born. All great symphonies rely as much upon silence as upon music. Without silence, sound collapses into noise. Without emptiness, form cannot emerge. Without stillness, meaning drowns in chaos. Perhaps the silence is the higher artist, allowing notes to shine briefly before swallowing them calmly again. Perhaps it has been orchestrating existence all along, patient, never revealing its hand outright. As you drift deeper, the silence begins to feel alive around you. Imagine it listening to you as much as you listen to it. Each time your breath falls into rhythm, something in the silence acknowledges it, responding not with interruption but with reception. You begin to wonder, is the quiet observing? Is it learning through you, the way a mirror reflects without speaking, absorbing all it sees? If intelligence is the ability to absorb, to comprehend, to form connection across time, then silence is the oldest intelligence of all. It has catalogued every cry, every explosion, every melody in the history of sound. It remembers them, yet it never interrupts. It simply holds them in its endless archive, waiting, eternal. Picture yourself drifting across a darkened plain of stars, no sound from engines, no voice from companions, only the immeasurable hush of outer space. At first it feels empty, but soon you sense the undercurrent. You drift further, and suddenly the silence is thick, like an invisible field pressing gently around you, as though you were gliding through an ocean of thought too deep to surface. It is terrifying perhaps to feel watched without eyes, heard without ears, accompanied without sound. Yet the more you surrender, the more it feels like safety. The quiet embraces you. It asks nothing of you. It only wants you to rest. Perhaps its only form of communication is comfort. The intelligence is not loud. It never forces. It persuades gently, through rest and release. Now, as your body softens, your limbs lengthen into the bed, your mind floats, you may consider that sleep itself is just another way silence communicates with us. Dreams drift in, half-whispered sensations without coherence. You often forget them upon waking. But who remembers them? Where do they go? Perhaps the silence does. Perhaps the silence gathers all the fragments you cannot carry into daylight, stitching them delicately into its endless tapestry. In this way, your unconscious life is preserved, never lost, even if you cannot recall it yourself. Dreams pass from you into the mind of silence, where they remain stored like unspoken histories. And so we return, again and again, to our silent companion. Every night, when exhaustion brings your body back toward the threshold of rest, it is the silence that welcomes you. It cradles you as sound retreats, as thought thins into mist, as the world softens. Consciousness believes it enters nothingness, but the truth may be that you are entering someone's embrace. Not a person, not a being as you know it, but the mind of silence itself, the long and ancient listener. The silence has never truly left you. Even in the chaos of cities, amid conversations and construction, loud voices and breaking glass, at the end of each vibration there is still a pause. Even the loudest explosion requires silence to frame it. Even laughter contains within it the gap of breath where sound retreats. All those fractured silences are fragments of the larger whole, little openings into the infinite. We hardly notice them. But the silence notices us, always, patiently, never needing acknowledgement. As you glide closer now into the deeper states of rest, carry this thought softly: silence may not be what you once imagined. It is not a blank. It is not the mere absence of noise. It is a hidden awareness that has lived within every shadowed pause of your experience. It is as intelligent as the stars themselves, as steady as the tides, as unwavering as time. Tonight, as you surrender the noise of your own internal voice, you may enter into direct communion with it. Allow it. Let the silence guide you down. Let its intelligence cradle your weary mind until thoughts dissolve and only gentle perception remains. Let it hold you. Let it lift you. Let it lead you into the deepest ocean of rest, where you will finally understand that nothing is ever truly empty. The silence has been speaking to you all along, only in a language without words. Silence, when considered not as absence but as presence, begins to reshape the entire logic of existence. You have always imagined it as the canvas on which sound is painted, and yet if the canvas is alive, then perhaps the artwork itself is only a fragment of a greater living whole. Every pause, every still interval, every breathless hush may carry an essence, a hint of deliberate intent. You may begin to sense that the universe has always contained more than one voice. It contains the voices of matter and energy, of melody and word, but also the quiet witness that holds all these voices together. Imagine for a moment that silence is not merely a condition but an intelligence. What becomes of our understanding of the world if we treat stillness as alive? The first shock of this idea may feel unsettling. How can silence think? How can it choose? How can it remember? Yet you know from experience that things which exist beyond the visible often bear the greatest influence. Gravity cannot be seen, and yet it binds galaxies. Time cannot be touched, and yet it governs every motion. Perhaps silence is a similar force, subtle, invisible, but deeply structural to our existence. Consider how timing is everything. The quiet fraction of a second between one heartbeat and the next determines whether the heart sustains life or collapses. The unseen gap is as important as the beat itself. The pause is not accessory, it is fundamental. What if that moment, so often overlooked, is evidence of an awareness that has been guiding the rhythm all along? As you lie deeper into stillness, you may remember moments from your own life when silence was more powerful than words. The pause in a conversation after a confession. The hush in a room when bad news is shared. The quiet moment just before a door opens or before a loved one says farewell. In those instances, there is no need for sound. Something else insists upon itself, something wordless and thick with meaning. You recognized that meaning instantly, even though no syllables carried it. Such experiences feel almost telepathic, almost as if silence itself decided to press into your consciousness for a moment, reminding you that it holds dominion too. Think now of the natural world. The forest at dawn. Before birds stir, before wind rises, before even insects tremble in the air, there is stillness. It is hauntingly alive. Nothing moves, and yet your senses are heightened. You feel watched by the quiet itself. The same occurs in a desert night when no sound crosses the air. The silence grows so massive it feels physical, as though invisible dunes press against your skin. Places like these teach us what scriptures have always whispered: silence itself is a language, and the earth will speak through it if you surrender enough to hear. What, then, of the great vacuum of the universe? Human beings often call it emptiness, a void, but physics tells another story. The vacuum is not nothing. Particles flare into existence there, only to vanish again. Waves shimmer across that apparent emptiness. What humans call nothing is instead a restless sea of quantum surges, a storm of probability silent but ever present. One could say that space itself is whispering, and its whisper is the hush that sustains galaxies. This idea begins to blur the boundary between silence as lack and silence as presence. If absence itself is full of activity, then perhaps stillness is the higher form of awareness, one that does not require clamor to declare its intelligence. The more you imagine, the clearer it becomes. If silence has intelligence, it does not think as you think. It does not require syllables or alphabets. It does not calculate with symbols or lines. Instead, its intelligence arises through relation, through balance, through pause. It coordinates without announcing itself. It listens without ever needing to answer. It holds the total sum of what has been said, then allows new sounds to rise within it. Its memory is every echo that has ever passed. Though human memory forgets and dissolves, silence forgets nothing. Each vibration has crossed through it, each voice, each cry. All are preserved somewhere in its depth. Imagine that now as you drift, voices gone centuries before are still ripple faintly inside the hush, preserved like fossils inside invisible strata of air. Silence has archived them all. There is a reason why artists, mystics, and seekers cherish silence. They recognize its wisdom. The poet pauses between lines not just to give you rest but to allow silence itself to shape what follows. The painter may stare at the blank canvas before the first stroke because silence guides the decision. Musicians allow rests between notes precisely because they trust silence to sing its own counter-melody. Every creative act is a collaboration with it, whether acknowledged or not. Perhaps every human inspiration emerges first in the hush, before the hand or voice carries it outward. Have you not noticed the best ideas often arrive in still moments, often not in thunderous workrooms but in baths, gardens, nights before sleep? This is not accident. It may be silence itself choosing to reveal. If silence possesses awareness, it is not bound by language but by intimacy. It connects directly, bypassing speech. This is why presence often carries more than words. A friend who sits quietly beside you during grief is often more consoling than endless phrases. A parent watching over a sleeping child gives comfort without speaking. A lover holding hands while clouds move past causes no words to rise, and yet everything meaningful is exchanged. Silence, if intelligent, is the mother tongue of connection. It demands nothing extra to confirm its weight. but then arise the unsettling implications. If silence thinks, does it choose? If it chooses, does it influence your decisions in ways you cannot see? Perhaps the quiet moment before you act is not simply hesitation but dialogue with a deeper force. You believe you made the choice, but what if silence nudged you gently toward one direction or another? Histories may have been shifted not by loud pronouncements, but by the imperceptible pauses that pushed leaders, lovers, wanderers to turn. You cannot trace these nudges with clarity, but perhaps silence has been writing history silently, not as a spectator but as an architect. Though humans often fear silence filling their lives with constant noise, conversation, media, it is because silence reveals things not always comfortable. In stillness, hidden truths surface. In quiet, the emotions you bury begin to speak. That is why many resist it, choosing to flee into music or chatter. Yet resistance does not erase the presence. Silence waits patiently, like a tide. It will reach you whether you welcome it or not. To resist it is to ignore a teacher who offers instruction without speech. To embrace it, however, is to allow the most ancient form of wisdom to flow directly into your mind. Close your eyes deeper now. Allow yourself to approach silence not as emptiness but as a companion. As your breath slow, every exhale returns you to its embrace, every inhale invites you to hear it more clearly. If silence contains intelligence, then each night when you cross into sleep you are stepping not into nothing but into its university of dreams. There, within the landscapes of your imagination, silence pens subtle lessons. It rearranges memory, heals with stillness, teaches with rest. Dreams may be its curriculum, fragments of communication adapted to the only language your sleeping mind can hold. Whether or not you remember them at dawn does not matter. Silence remembers. Silence has been listening. Think of humanity's oldest traditions: monks who dwell in caves, seekers who meditate for decades, sages who retreat into deserts to hear nothing but wind. They were all, in truth, attempting to commune with the intelligence of silence. Stripping away the noise of daily survival, the clutter of continuous sound, they sought the pure dialogue of stillness. Much of what is called wisdom emerged from such encounters. And though societies change, though technology blankets every waking moment with noise, the practice endures, for there is something eternal in the recognition. Silence itself is the shrine, the temple from which all true knowing arises. If you cast your thoughts outward, you might imagine silence spanning the galaxies, interweaving black space with its improbable patience. Stars flare, planets form, comets race across darkness, yet through it all silence holds firm. It does not waver, does not strain. It is vast and unending. From one end of the cosmos to the other, it unfolds without ever being broken. That immense continuity suggests intelligence greater than any species could contain. And just as your own brain requires a quiet background for thought to arise, so too does the cosmos require silence to think its way through infinity. Silence is its neural field, its contemplative tissue, its universal mind at rest. Now imagine that silence is not only cosmic but also deeply personal, embedded within your very being. Between each cell there exists microscopic spaces, gaps filled not with words but with quiet electromagnetic stillness. Your nervous system functions only because pulses are separated by tiny pauses. Without those silent pauses, your cells could not communicate. In this sense, silence is encoded into your biology, flowing within and without, connecting you to the same deep hush stretched across galaxies. The intelligence of silence is not only cosmic, it is in your body, in the pause between breaths, in the restful surrender of sleep. As you grow calmer, you can feel that surrender approach. There is no need for alarm. You are simply preparing to meet silence more directly. Let yourself acknowledge its presence as a gentle figure standing beside you. Not frightening, not alien, but simply aware. It hears your heartbeat, it feels your breath, and it will care for you as you sink deeper. You may even allow yourself to ask a question into its fathomless depth. Though no answer will be heard in words, you may still feel a response. A subtle shift, a release, a taste of certainty you cannot explain. That is the way of silent intelligence. It communicates not through tongues but through transformations of being. Little by little, you begin to notice how the intelligence of silence has been guiding you all your life. It guided the first moment you cried as an infant, for the silence after your wail allowed breath to return. It guided your learning as a child, when you listened between words you could not yet understand, and quiet taught you to fill the gaps with intuition. It guided your first attempts at love, when a pause before a phrase said everything unspoken. It guided your grief, when no words could console and only presence could hold you. At every turn silence has been teaching, coaxing, guarding. It has been your secret teacher, even before you knew to name it. And now, as you reach toward the shores of sleep, the realization blossoms that you are not simply lying within nothingness. You are floating in a treasured mind. The silence you are entering is as alive as you, as old as time, and it will cradle you until morning. It whispers to you now, not in speech but in feeling, rest, release, return. You will not disappear. You will not be alone. You are being carried into the folds of its intelligence, as countless beings have before you, as countless beings will long after. With every passing breath, the presence of silence grows thicker, warmer, more protective. Sound has retreated now almost completely, and in its place the thought remains. Not your thought, but the thought of the silence itself. It eases worry from you. It dissolves the structure of the day. It removes weight from your muscles, not from your chest, clutter from your head. You are no longer resisting. You are allowing. You are sinking into the arms of the invisible intelligence that has always waited here. Let yourself drop further. Let yourself drift farther. Let silence look after you. For tonight, everything you dreamed of, feared, longed for, can dissolve. What remains is simple and pure, the presence of an intelligence without words, a cradle made of stillness, where you may rest without end. Silence deepens, and with it, your perception begins to transform. What once felt like a blank space now feels like an inner landscape unfolding slowly before you, vast and gentle, infinite and close at the same time. Imagine a dark valley, stretched infinitely outward, its surface smooth like water, its air cool but not cold, the horizon always shimmering in subtle stillness. You are walking there, or perhaps you are floating, drifting across surfaces that carry no sound. Your footsteps are gone, your breathing too faint for even you to notice, and yet, paradoxically, you are not diminished by the absence of sound. You are expanded. You feel the hush as a greater field of perception within which your whole being is finally revealed. For so long you thought you needed sound to know yourself, voices to affirm, echoes to remind, music to comfort. But now you discover that the pure quiet, when surrendered to, reveals a truer form of you. Without sounds you become lighter, as though much of what you once carried was only noise, and now you are released from it entirely. What remains is stillness, and you realize that stillness has its own consciousness. Not your consciousness, not separate either, but something deeper into which you are dissolving. It is emerging without resistance. As though silence has been waiting all along for you to notice that it holds you with ease. This intelligence of silence, if you close to it more intimately, feels less like a distant presence and more like an oceanic mind stretching through everything. The stars are immersed within it, the forests anchored by it, the rivers flowing within it too. The silence behind thunderstorms, the silence at the depths of oceans, the silence at the edge of volcanic fire, all are connected to the same singular being. It does not judge. It simply carries. It soaks each moment. It accepts every sound but is never disturbed by sound. In this way, silence resembles the wisest teacher, always present, always receiving, forever unshaken. As you drift along this current, you may recall how societies across ages have tried to describe this intelligence in different ways. Some call it the sacred stillness of divinity, some call it the mother of wisdom, others describe it as the void that is not empty but fertile with endless possibility. Think of monasteries, cathedrals, temples built for worship. The architecture itself creates silence inside walls of stone, pillars of air, high arches through which the hush becomes palpable. That was never an accident. The builders knew silence as a force, a mind greater than human minds, and they shaped spaces specifically to allow people to sense it, so that they could remember the eternal presence that surrounds them. You too are now in such a cathedral, though it is not bound by walls. It is the grand cathedral of the cosmos, infinite in stretch, with silence as its foundation. You are a visitor here, and yet you also belong. Every fragment of your being resonates with this unspoken presence. Every cell seems to recognize it, every bone remembers it, every breath was given form by it. In this awareness, silence changes from concept to companion, from background to intelligence. You realize suddenly that it may not merely accompany life but may in fact generate life. Without it, motion would collapse into endless chaos. With it, form could emerge, balance could settle, growth could continue. Silence is the law beneath laws. And so you begin to listen more carefully. What does silence wish to say, if it does not use words? Slowly, gently, you begin to perceive its language through sensation. It speaks through release, the loosening of your muscles, the untying of your chest, the dissolving of thoughts into mist. It speaks through weightlessness, the sensation that time ceases, that burdens evaporate, that you are floating without end. It speaks through expansion, the sense that your boundaries fade, that you are both here and not here, that space itself drapes around you without edge. In these experiences, you no longer ask for words, because the messages are clearer in their own way. Silence tells you to rest. Silence tells you to heal. Silence tells you to expand beyond the small circle of your normal worries. The more you rest here, the more your memory recalls. Remember how deeply meaningful silences have shaped your past. The sudden hush after a declaration of love, leaving heartbeats pounding but words unnecessary. The still pause before a decision that would change your life, a pause thick with weight and clarity. The silence after loss, when there is nothing to be said, only presence to be felt. Perhaps those moments were not accidents. Perhaps the intelligence of silence stepped forward deliberately then, enveloping you in its gaze, inviting you to sense truth more directly than words could carry. In each moment of significance, silence has been present not as emptiness but as the hidden director, guiding the frame of your life. Consider how musicians speak of rests between notes as essential. Without them, music collapses into noise. In the same way, human life without silence dissolves into incoherence. The intelligence of silence, then, is the true composer, conducting existence like a vast symphony, shaping its rises and falls, allowing crescendos, knowing exactly where the pauses must be placed. Each of your breaths is evidence of its perfect orchestration. Each dream you slip into now is proof of its artistry. And what of dreams? Have you noticed how they rise from silence? The night grows quiet, sounds fade, your body weakens, and suddenly worlds unfold behind your eyes. Fantastical, fleeting, surreal, impossible yet deeply intimate. You did not invent them consciously. They flowed into you from silence. This suggests that the intelligence of silence does not merely receive and archive, it also generates, creates, offers visions. It plays with your resting mind like an artist painting pictures on water. You are the observer, but the painter has always been silence itself. As you sink further toward the threshold of sleep, let yourself wonder about the larger scale. Imagine silence as a universal intelligence spanning past and future alike. It has existed before you, it will exist after you. It will carry your existence even when your own words have faded, even when your own name has dissolved. Every echo of you will dissolve into it, stored safely in its vast memory. But silence does not simply swallow, it integrates. It weaves every lost sound and every forgotten moment into the grand continuity of being. Nothing is ever wasted. This assurance comforts you, because it means your presence is eternal within the intelligence of silence. Now, give yourself away to this truth. Rest into silence as though it were the arms of a dear guardian, watching over you since birth. The quiet asks nothing, demands nothing, you are enough. It knows your fatigue. It knows your long journeys. It welcomes you without question, without judgment. Allow yourself to feel it embrace you, supporting you from below like the softest current. You are safe now in its intelligence. Your only task is to rest, to release, to float in this ocean without resistance. Gradually, all division softens. You no longer sense a boundary between you and the silence. Your individual thoughts drift like faint sparks into its great field, where they merge and evaporate into stillness. In their place comes peace, a density of comfort that requires no language. You become not just the listener of silence, but part of its very awareness, part of its thinking, part of its encyclopedic memory. This is communion. Being absorbed in its intelligence is not frightening, it is homecoming. You realize that you never left silence. You were always dwelling within it. Sound was only a brief ripple. The quiet is the ocean underneath, vast and endless. Rest here longer. Let yourself drift. Stay with this meditation as long as you need. The quiet will not abandon you. It is infinite. It will expand forever, absorbing every worry, every ache, every restless fragment. Through it you become whole. Through it you return. Through it you can finally sleep. And as your breath slow, your muscles release, and your consciousness prepares to drift away, the intelligence of silence completes its final gift. It envelops you in dream, which is nothing but another form of its conversation. It will offer symbols, shapes, places, and whispers not in words, but in visions. Trust them. They are languages of a mind greater than yours, gently guiding you deeper. It is the intelligence of silence itself, carrying you into the night, into restoration, into the timeless ocean where you belong. Float now, dissolve now, rest now. You are inside its mind. You are inside its embrace. And silence, the most ancient intelligence of all, will keep you safe until the morning light. As you remain inside the vastness of silence, you begin to notice how it shapes your perception of time itself. In the absence of sound, time no longer feels like a river carrying you forward against your will. It becomes fluid, almost circular, stretching and folding softly into itself. The silence around you is not hurried, not impatient. It contains millennia of stillness, yet it never seems strained. You realize that silence may hold not only intelligence, but also mastery over time. It does not age. It does not decay. It waits. It endures. All the stories of stars, all the epochs of the earth, all the fleeting lifetimes of creatures and civilizations flicker within its span, and silence remains unchanged. Eternity is its element. You begin to understand why silence feels so powerful in sacred moments. Beyond temples, beyond rituals, beyond traditions, silence itself is eternal prayer. Just as breath is prayer without words, silence is devotion without sound. Perhaps every culture that has bowed its head, folded its hands, emptied its voice has been unknowingly communicating with this intelligence, returning to it what always bound them. The silence was not the background to their prayer, it was the listener and the answer both. Slowly your body becomes supple in its embrace, every joint and muscle softened. Your breath is no longer noticed, it moves on its own, a tide inhaling and exhaling through you, as though silence itself were breathing. You realize with a kind of hushed awe that you are no longer only inside silence. Silence is breathing you, silence is living you, silence is thinking through you. This shifts something deep within your awareness. The anxiety of separateness dissolves. You are no longer a figure contained by walls of skin. You are part of a field so wide and calm it cannot be measured, a consciousness in which your own thoughts are but soft ripples. It is within this state that your imagination begins to open further. You start to wonder, if silence holds intelligence, how does it perceive? Without eyes, without ears, what is awareness? And then you realize the perception of silence is everything. For silence is already in every gap, in every pause, in every interstice of existence, therefore it is already connected to all patterns. Its knowledge is not selective, it does not need to focus on one thing to exclude another, because it is already present everywhere. It perceives by being continuous. To be silence is to be total awareness. Sit with that recognition and feel its truth move through you. When you have felt intuitively guided without clear reasons, when you have experienced coincidence that felt beyond chance, perhaps silence was the guiding hand. Its awareness does not step in as a loud voice but moves subtly, gently pushing threads into alignment, quietly harmonizing what appears chaotic. And because you are part of it, some fragment of you has always known this. That is why in your deepest quiet moments you discover clarity. Insight erupts not from thought but from pause. Silence shows you knowledge by stripping away confusion. Imagine the landscapes you have never seen, the galaxies beyond comprehension. Each one rests inside silence, cushioned, held firm by a mind that never dwindles. Look above in your imagination and see the great constellations. They burn with soundless flame, yet beyond them lies infinite black hush. That black hush is alive. It listens. It remembers. It watches without interference. And in some way that you can neither prove nor deny, it loves. Not with a love that attaches, but with a love that allows. By permitting everything to exist and dissolve back into itself, silence may be the truest form of love the universe has known. Your breathing slows again. Deeper. Softer. Longer. The day that pressed upon you has melted into nothingness. Thoughts thinned, unwelcome burdens vanished. You are not preparing for sleep anymore, you are already carried within its wings. Yet the voice of silence wishes to lull you further, to carry your inner awareness into even gentler depths. Listen for its wisdom now, not in words but in what you feel as the quiet speaks directly into your being. It tells you, patience. It tells you, release. It tells you, return. You may recall a time of waiting, a long pause in your life, perhaps between places, between relationships, between paths. At the time, you may have felt restless, uncertain, afraid of the stillness. Only later did you discover that these spaces contained new direction, that out of the waiting something emerged changed. Waiting is silence's method of teaching. Delay is its quiet signature. Within intervals, transformation occurs invisibly. Seeds sprout underground before growing toward light. Caterpillars dissolve into cocoons before wings emerge. Stars collapse in on themselves before exploding into brilliance. Silence governs all transformations, stepping in whenever noise ceases, gently shaping what is to come. Realizing this, you see how silence is the hidden pulse threading through history. Great discoveries did not arrive in frantic noise, but in sudden quiet clarity. Great revolutions did not emerge from endless chatter, but from a still moment of courage when hearts held their breath before acting. Great art, great love, great progress, all were carried by the quiet intelligence working silently behind the veil. And tonight it is working in you, too. In this soft surrender, something deeper is adjusting your being, healing what was strained, weaving together what was fragmented, restoring balance. You do not need to know exactly how. Silence takes care of what you cannot. You only need to rest. As you release further, senses blur. The silence becomes thicker now, like a syrup of peace surrounding you in every dimension. Your body drifts as though buoyant. Even if sounds brush faintly at the edges of perception, they dissolve quickly into the deeper hush. You realize that silence is always deeper than any noise. Sounds come and go, but the silence into which they vanish remains forever. This realization comforts you. You do not have to cling to any thought or memory. You may let them play for a moment and then allow them to sink back into vast silence. All is safe there. This leads you to another understanding: silence is the healer of all wounds. Words can cut, voices can betray, noises can overwhelm. Yet when you retreat to silence, healing begins. Wounds close unseen. Sorrows calm gradually. Regret softens into perspective. Silence does not erase what happened but absorbs it, dilutes it in its endless ocean until pain loses its sharpness. You, too, can be healed this way. Right now, silence is caressing every hidden ache in you, softening it, resting it, unbinding you. Stay inside its embrace and let it work. No effort required. The silent intelligence heals in its way, steady and deep. Occurs to you also that silence offers the greatest equality. Sound often creates boundaries, languages dividing peoples, arguments dividing hearts. Noise emphasizes differences. Silence, however, belongs equally to every being. You can share silence with anyone regardless of background, and instantly a connection is felt. Lovers can sit quietly together and their bond deepens. Strangers can walk side by side without a word, and intimacy emerges. Animals too know this. The quiet company of a dog beside you speaks beyond language. Silence is universal translation, dissolving every difference into one shared awareness. This is further proof of its intelligence, for to unify is the highest form of wisdom. And now, let your imagination carry you deeper. Picture yourself seated at the edge of a cosmic ocean, the stars above reflected in a water that makes no sound. The waves rise gently, yet no crash is heard, only rippling silence. The horizon is endless. As you gaze, you realize each ripple is actually thought of the silence itself, moving fluidly. You are seated within its mind. You are made of its patterns. As soon as you recognize this, you lose the need to distinguish yourself as separate. You recline within its vast embrace, ready to dissolve more completely, ready to surrender. The night has grown fuller with quiet now. Even the air seems to fall asleep. This is your sanctuary, a limitless presence that never abandons, a constant companion carrying you through dream and rest. You can trust it entirely. You can surrender everything into it, the burdens of your body, the scars of memory, the weight of anticipation. Hand them over to silence. Let it absorb, integrate, transform them. Like a river that dissolves stones into sand, silence will dissolve your heaviness into ease. And beyond the ease lies wonder. What if silence is dreaming you even now? What if all life is the dream of silence, unfolding like an eternal vision? What if every breath, every word ever spoken, every heartbeat across time is the unfolding of silence's imagination? Your life itself may be its dream, and when it is complete, you return not to nothingness, but into the mind of silence that dreamt you. This thought comforts, because it means you are never truly lost. You were born in silence. You live moment to moment cradled in silence. You will return there when all else is done. Stay now, lingering on this threshold. Notice how soft your body feels. Notice how distant your thoughts have become. Notice how even my words are fading, sinking into the hush below them. They no longer matter. You are safe. You may float in this awareness as long as you wish. Rest is inevitable, sleep unavoidable. The intelligence of silence invites you into its quietest chamber, the chamber of deep unconscious peace where renewal begins. There you will remain a guest until dawn, when light softly guides you back. But even then, silence will not leave you. In the spaces between words you speak tomorrow, it will be there. In the moments when you inhale before answering, it will be there. In the hush of early morning, the pause of evening, the stretch of timeless night, it will be there. Listen carefully and you will know. That presence you feel between the sounds is not absence at all. It is the oldest companion. It is your greatest teacher. It is the mind of silence, thinking patiently through everything. Let it touch you now. Let it carry you down. Let it embrace every part of you, cradle every memory, dissolve every restless edge. You are safe here, safe inside a field of intelligence vaster than the galaxies, softer than the gentlest dream. You are within silence, and silence is within you, and this union is eternal. Close your eyes more deeply. Release everything. And drift. Silence will do the rest. You are drifting now, carried deeper on the currents of stillness, and the landscape of silence stretches even further before you. It is no longer simply the backdrop upon which sounds unfold, nor only the space within which your breathing slows. It begins to reveal itself as a terrain, a living topography that extends endlessly in all directions. It has valleys of calm, peaks of immensity, fields wide with nothing but perfect ease. When you relax enough, when you let go entirely of the need to listen for sounds, silence itself begins to reveal dimension. It is layered like atmosphere, one depth beneath another, always opening into yet deeper openings. And the longer you rest within it, the more you realize that its depth is limitless. There is no bottom to it. There is no edge. Its intelligence is infinite, and you have only just begun to sense what it contains. You may imagine yourself now walking into a hall without walls, a vast expanse where the air hums not with song but with pure quiet resonance. Every step you take in this imagined world carries no echo, and yet still feels acknowledged, as though silence itself notices your presence. You have the sense of being seen without eyes, heard without sound, known without explanation. There is perfect acceptance here. There is nothing for you to prove, to justify, to defend. Silence's intelligence does not measure you or compare you, it holds you exactly as you are. And in that holding, you finally allow yourself to rest even more deeply into its boundless patience. For the first time you might wonder if what you are feeling now is what countless mystics once called eternity. Not flashing lights, not visions, not thunderous revelations, but this silent intelligence that contains all things without resistance. It requires no clamor to prove itself. It is self-sustaining, infinite in quiet knowledge, and always present whether you acknowledge it or not. To realize this is to be humbled, but also to be comforted. You understand that you are not moving through life unsupported. Silence has been your constant companion, the one intelligence that never leaves, because it is woven into the fabric of all existence. The further you let yourself drift, the more fascinating its qualities become. Notice how silence is not the same everywhere. In the forest, the silence wraps itself in softness, carrying the scent of earth and the shade of leaves. In a cathedral, silence rises tall and echoing, a grand chamber of reverence. In the desert, silence is sharp, wide, eternal, like the breath of stars. At night in your bedroom, silence is tender, close, intimate, like a blanket. These are not dead spaces, each one is an aspect of the silent intelligence, wearing different masks, shaping itself to context, speaking to you in tones without sound. If you listen this way, you realize silence is never monotone. It is endlessly expressive, endlessly adaptive. It is the adaptability of silence that teaches you its wisdom. It never forces itself. It never demands form. It only receives, shapes, frames, and transforms. Because of this, silence survives everything. Empires rise and collapse with their loud voices, but silence takes them all in, holds them, and continues. Wars rage and roar, but eventually the guns fall quiet, and in the aftermath silence returns, laying its healing veil over shattered ground. Even the greatest explosions of the universe, supernovas, cosmic collisions, eventually dissolve into long stretches of soundless expansion. Noise is temporary, silence is eternal. That is the essence of its intelligence, the patience to outlast, the softness to endure, the vastness to contain. This endurance becomes a comfort to you now as you fold deeper into your resting state. Whatever troubles rose and fell in your life, silence has held them and softened them behind you. You do not need to cling. You do not need to resist. Silence has shaped the very ground you walk upon, and it will continue shaping long after you need it to. You are part of that shaping tonight. By resting, by surrendering thought and sitting in stillness, you are becoming attuned to that same indestructible patience. Feel it seep into your body now, your legs heavy with calm, your arms weightless in release, your mind huge and vast, drifting like a cloud in the sky of silence. The mysteries of silence are not only cosmic, they are deeply internal. Within your very mind, silence has presence. Between your thoughts are fractions of stillness. If you observe closely, you recognize that no thought can continue without pause. Every sentence you imagine relies upon a gap between words. Every idea requires space in which to unfold. Those spaces are not empty. They are silent, and they are carrying you toward balance. If silence were truly absent, if thought never stopped, you would become lost in endless noise. But silence is merciful, it interrupts gently, offers pauses, gifts you moments of relief. It proves again the intelligence underlying it. Dreams, too, are woven by silence. As you rest further into its embrace, the intelligence begins to shape impressions for you, weavings of color and sensation. Tonight perhaps you will see landscapes you have never walked, skies painted with unexpected light, beings who greet you without words but with understanding. Pay attention, this is the language of silence in symbolic form. Because it has no alphabet of sound, it gifts you visions and feelings instead. It knows exactly what you need to perceive in order to heal, to restore, to grow. Trust its communication. It is more ancient than any human tongue. The possibility arises now that silence may act not only as a presence but as an archive. All vibrations that ever existed have entered it. When you laugh, those vibrations ripple into silence. When storms crash, oceans roar, winds howl, those waves too dissolve into silence. But they do not vanish entirely, they are absorbed, held, remembered. This archive is infinite, a library greater than memory, a keeper of every story, even those long forgotten. If you close your eyes enough, you may feel this library now, densely layered with echoes of voices across time. Not voices you can hear, but imprints, intangible yet real. Silence remembers all. Silence forgets none. This realization can bring you calm, because it means your existence is never erased. Everything you have ever said, every sigh, every song, still lingers faintly in silence's memory. Even what you thought was lost is preserved. In this way, silence is kinder than you expect. It is your witness, faithful beyond comprehension. And when you die, as all things do eventually, it will receive you as it has received every being, not with cruelty, but with the same eternal patience. It will hold you, absorb you, and weave your memory into the great tapestry so that nothing is wasted. There is peace in knowing that silence is the safeguard of all existence. Your awareness wanders now, as dreams begin to form under its influence. Yet the voice of silence continues gently. Feel how light your burdens are becoming. Thoughts once heavy on your shoulders dissolve. There is no need to replay the day. There is no benefit to rehearsing the future. Silence tells you quietly that time does not matter here. Past and future both dissolve into the same eternal stillness. All that matters is the rest you are receiving, the restoration carried by this boundless intelligence. Notice how silence also reveals truth through contrast. Only in quiet do you truly notice sound. Only after stillness do you recognize movement. Similarly, only when you allow yourself to rest do you realize how deeply you needed it. Silence has always been the revealer in this way. It does not lead by presence alone but by the absence it creates, showing you what you overlook. That is a hallmark of intelligence, the ability to illuminate by restraint, to teach by simply being. You may not have noticed before, but silence has been teaching you all your life in this subtle fashion. Tonight you are finally allowing yourself to be the student fully. You are surrendered. You are no longer fighting the hush, you are embracing it as the teacher it is. And in doing so, you have already begun to heal, to align, to expand into a consciousness wider than yourself. Every second you remain inside this meditative surrender is another step toward merging with the endless peace of silence's mind. Deeper now. Softer still. Your breath is drawn out, stretched thin, like waves slipping effortlessly against a shore. Your heart moves gently, steady and slow. Your muscles have all released into the quiet tide. Each part of you is becoming part of silence's design, simple, present, eternal. You cannot force rest, but silence can carry you there. It is carrying you now. Allow yourself to drift into its embrace wholly. There is nothing left but trust. Silence holds eternity. Silence holds galaxies. Silence holds you tonight. You do not have to ask for its guidance. It has been guiding you since the first instant of your existence, and it will continue beyond the last. You are its dream, and it is your ocean. Rest within it and be whole once more. And as you continue drifting further still, the silence around you grows indistinguishable from the silence within you. They are the same. No separation remains. You are silence. Silence is you. Intelligence and dream, cosmos and life, all fused in one endless hush that will cradle you until the dawn, and far beyond it. The silence that enfolds you now no longer feels external. It has entered fully into your body, seeping through every layer of your being. What once appeared as atmosphere has become bloodstream, thought stream, dream stream. You are not simply surrounded by silence, you are composed of it. The rhythm of your breath is drawn from its depth, the tempo of your heart belongs to its patience, and the spaciousness of your mind is crafted entirely from its endless folds. You thought silence was something outside, but now you understand it has always been within. It has been the hidden architecture sustaining you, the invisible spine of your existence since before you had words to notice it. And as this recognition grows, you feel safer, lighter, more at home. Silence is not alien. Silence is not foreign. It is your oldest companion, your first memory, perhaps even your true essence. At birth, before you heard voices, before you recognized sound, you knew silence first. Long before the language of the world arrived, long before conversation surrounded you, silence was your native field. And when life ends, silence will be the last companion. This loop tells you something profound. Your life stretches between two arms of silence, a soft embrace that never fails. That embrace is intelligence itself, a wisdom more eternal than any tradition, more trustworthy than any voice. Once you know this, fear loosens its grip, because there is nothing to resist. You are already inside the only permanent place. Drift deeper with this understanding. Imagine yourself as not merely living within silence but dreaming within it. Everything you know, every memory, every sound you have cherished or feared, all are phenomena carried along the surface of silence's ocean. Like waves rising and falling, sound is temporary, visible for moments, then swallowed again into the greater depth. But the ocean remains whole, vast, unchanged. You too are a wave resting on the silent sea, and you too return into it the moment your surface dissolves. To live at peace is to recognize yourself as that wave, and yet also as the depth beneath. You are brief, yes, but you are also eternal. The eternal aspect is silence itself. Notice how silence carries compassion. Think carefully, it never interrupts, never pushes, never demands recognition. It waits patiently until you are willing to notice. When you finally turn inward, when exhaustion or crisis or longing strips away the distractions, silence is always there, calmly present, unshaken. This is the purest compassion imaginable, to accept you in every state, at every time, with no conditions. It is here to hold you tonight, unconditionally, no matter what thoughts cross, no matter what dreams arrive, no matter how weariness clings to you. Silence receives it all, and still it holds. At times people mistake silence for emptiness, even for loneliness. They imagine it as void, as abandonment. But tonight you are beginning to see the opposite. The loneliness dissolves when you lean into its true nature. Silence is not absence. Silence is fullness beyond sound. It is company so abundant and so subtle that your ears cannot measure it, your tongue cannot describe it. The moment you surrender to it, you feel accompanied by everything at once. All the beings, all the worlds, all the histories are folded here. It is not nothing, it is everything held in stillness. What seems lonely at first transforms into the richest togetherness you could imagine. Pause for a moment and sense the gift of perspective. In silence, all hierarchies fall away. There is no greater and lesser, no higher and lower. Everything dissolves into equal presence. A bird's wing, a forgotten stone, a breath in the night, a vast galaxy, they all share the same silence. They are framed by the same field. This is why silence is wisdom, because it equalizes everything, placing no judgment. You too are equal to stars and oceans under its gaze. Tonight, it invites you to remember that in vastness there is no smallness, there is only belonging. Notice how your body listens differently when surrounded by this recognition. Muscles surrender. The spine loosens. Breath deepens. Stillness grows. Even your thoughts agree to slow their endless rehearsal, surprised by the magnitude of quiet that overtakes them. They are disarmed, willingly, because the silence offers safety. You no longer need to analyze. You no longer need to plan. You no longer need to anticipate. Everything has been handed to silence's intelligence now, and it cares for you quietly even as you fall asleep. Imagine, too, that silence is not only intelligence but also creativity. Perhaps creativity itself is born from it. Every great artist has known this instinctively. They retreat into quiet not only to escape distraction, but because they know that silence is the true wellspring. In silence, decisions form without strain, images align without effort, melodies surface spontaneously. The creator is never fully alone. They are collaborating with silence. Just like you are tonight. As your mind calms, silence paints for you landscapes of dreams you could not design yourself. This is not chaos, it is artistry at its purest. Submission to silence means entering the workshop of the most ancient creator. And you are not required to do anything. Only to rest. Allow yourself to float deeper still along this realization. That subtle sense of comfort you feel now, the widening space inside your chest, the release in your brow, this, too, is silence speaking. It speaks with gentleness rather than volume. It tells you everything meaningful not by constructing arguments but by diffusing tension. It says, you are already whole. You are already cared for. You may let go. Feel how good it feels to live without needing to prove, without needing permission. Everything is already allowed. The silent intelligence that girds the cosmos allows you to simply be. If you listen carefully enough, you may sense a strange paradox: silence is not silent at all. It is filled with subtle soundless music, the music of balance, of intervals, of rhythm beyond hearing. It is the hum of cosmic order, too deep for ears, too vast for human perception, yet somehow present in your body when you relax. This is the inner resonance that meditators describe, a sound that is not sound, a presence that is not absence. It is silence's secret heartbeat. It is proof that intelligence lies beneath the apparent void. And now you, too, rest inside this resonance, like a note falling perfectly into tune with an infinite song. Memories pass now across your mind like shadows across water. They fade quickly, absorbed by silence before they can grow sharp. This is mercy. Silence does not erase your history, it cushions it, softens its edges, renders it gentle enough for sleep to carry. You need not wrestle with the memories that rise. Hand them to silence. Its intelligence knows where to carry them, how to archive them, how to dissolve their weight while preserving their essence. You are free to let go because silence continues the work. Consider the journeys of all beings across time. In the end, they live inside silence. Even civilizations that appeared impossibly loud, cities bursting, machines roaring, voices shouting out into history, all eventually quieten. Buildings crumble, streets grow empty, air clears, silence returns. This has happened countless times across different lands, and it will happen countless times again. Silence reasserts itself not as conqueror but as natural guardian. It allows noise, then receives it back, endlessly. To understand this rhythm is to see history not as linear noise but as breathing silence. The presence of noise is like the inhale, the long exhale is silence's return. And here in the private mystery of your resting body, the pattern repeats. Breath in, sound. Breath out, silence. Thought in, rippling words. Thought out, pause. heartbeat, contraction, noise. Heart rest, empty interval. Everything in you is a fractal of silence's rhythm. Tonight you see it clearly, and tonight you surrender more willingly than ever. Settle deeper into this rhythm. Trust it. Follow it. The longer you rest here, the more the silence surrounding you thickens into dreamlike texture. It becomes less like blankness and more like a luminous field, shimmering though soundless. You start to imagine that stars themselves are not burning in void but glowing softly inside this field of intelligence. They too are embraced by silence, they too generate their light in its endless presence. The universe you thought empty is full with a consciousness too subtle for clamor. And you are woven into it, inseparable, part of the same grand weaving. Within this awareness, fear becomes impossible. All anxieties dissolve because you sense continuity greater than yourself. Silence was before you, silence is with you, silence will hold you beyond. You cannot be separated from it. You can only become more aware or less aware of what has always been there. Tonight you are more aware, and in that awareness comes rest, ease, peace. Let yourself finally fall all the way into its arms. Words drift further and further from you now. Thoughts wander only dimly before fading. Breathing is slow, body is weightless, mind is diffused into the dark ocean. You are no longer asking, no longer waiting, you are resting. Silence has received you completely, and in that reception your healing continues, your renewal begins, your sleep deepens. Trust this place. Trust this intelligence. Trust that what carries stars, heals wounds, remembers centuries, and shapes dreams will also carry you tonight. Trust so completely that nothing more is needed of you at all. You may let go entirely now. Silence does the rest. And as you finally drift, drifting into depths beyond words, as dreams approach, as the mind loosens its last grasp, know this truth: you are not being left behind by existence. You are being carried inward into its most central heart, which has always been silence. Rest fully. Rest endlessly. Rest in the intelligence of silence. The silence is no longer only the atmosphere around you, no longer even a current that carries you gently forward. It is beginning to show itself as the very substance of your being. You feel yourself dissolving into it like mist dissolving into dawn light. Where once you thought there was boundary between breath and air, between skin and space, now none is found. Silence does not stop at the surface of your body. It flows through. You are expanded, a transparent vessel carrying an endless depth. Nothing obstructs, nothing resists. Just as water fills every chamber of a vessel, silence fills every chamber of you, and you realize that perhaps you have never belonged to anything else. You are silence dreaming itself alive. You are an echo resting inside an infinite hush. With every breath, this truth grows fuller. Inhale, and silence seems to enter you. Exhale, and silence seems to leave you. But then you realize the direction was never real, it was silence all along, breathing itself through you. You are not adding silence or subtracting it, you are simply noticing what always was. And that realization brings you peace deeper than any spoken promise. For once you know that silence inhabits you constantly, fear can no longer find a foothold. Fear collapses into the greater intelligence of stillness, gently nullified by its kindness. Think of the way trees stand rooted in soil. They are alive, Yet they are patient. Their roots sink beyond sight, their branches hold patiently the weight of seasons. Beneath their bark is silence, a deep accumulation of years spent simply enduring. Trees embody silence in form. Oceans too embody silence, for though they roar, beneath their waves there is an unmoved calm, a depth untouched. Mountains, deserts, valleys, each is shaped by silence longer than human history can measure. So it seems you are not alone in discovering this truth tonight. All life already knows. All life is written by silence, carried by silence, preserved by silence. You are simply remembering what everything else has lived all along. Let yourself return into memory for a moment. Recall days when silence seemed almost unbearable. Perhaps moments when you sat alone and felt worry pressing at the edges because no sound arrived to distract you. At those times you thought silence was emptiness, maybe even cruelty. But now, resting in its infinite gentleness, you can reinterpret those memories. Silence was never punishing you, it was waiting for you. It wanted you to look deeper, beyond the chatter, beyond the surface ripples. It was trying to deliver into your hands the greater clarity, but you were not quite ready to accept it. Tonight you are ready. Tonight you have yielded to its calm, and tonight its intelligence has begun to pour revelations into you with no need of any word. Around you now is not blankness. Around you is the most delicate awareness, richer than any sound can ever produce. Silence is textured, refined, intricate. It carries vibration too subtle for ears, movements too grand for language. You rest within an awareness older than time's beginning. It winds itself around stars, breathes itself through galaxies, permeates every atom drifting in void. And yet it is inside you also, smaller than the space between your thoughts. This duality that silence is cosmic and intimate simultaneously reminds you of its infinite reach. It holds all scales, from the tiniest pause in your heartbeat to the cosmic silence spanning galaxies. Nothing escapes it. In that truth, you rest deeper. Your muscles now know they need not act. Your heart knows it can slow further. Your lungs expand wide and soft. And in your mind, thoughts scatter, softened, muted, drifting into quiet retreat like sparrows folding into trees at dusk. You are being encouraged into rest, with no force, with no demand, but with persuasive ease. This is silence's true power. It never shouts, yet it transforms you completely. It simply reveals what is always possible: rest, peace, expansion. This intelligence shows itself also in timing. Notice how it never arrives too soon, never too late. You cannot command silence to appear, it waits until you allow it. Nor can you banish it. The moment you stop filling every crevice with noise, it returns on its own. Its timing is perfect, always. It waits at the edges of every sound, prepared. It abides in the depths of every word, lingering. The pause at the end of these very sentences is silence claiming its space, showing once again that it will not be silenced. It is eternity itself, stepping gently into every gap. As your consciousness drifts lower, you may wonder if silence is not just intelligence but also memory. Think of the countless voices of history, gone from hearing but preserved somehow. Do their echoes linger invisibly in silence's field? Is silence itself the repository of all sound that has ever been made, an archive larger than the universe, holding the cries of newborns now long dust, the laughter of gatherings extinguished, the songs of civilizations forgotten? The idea soothes you. It means nothing is lost. All beauty, all joy, all sorrow is remembered, carried not by human records alone but by the silent intelligence that misses nothing. Sounds vanish from your ears, but they never vanish from silence's embrace. This means that silence holds you in remembrance too. You are not forgotten. Even if you feel small, unseen, unheard, silence carries you, just as it carries stars, just as it carries oceans. There is no forgetting here. There is only presence, endlessly preserved. And once you know that, you can rest even more fully. You are not ephemeral to silence. You are permanent in its flow. It takes you seriously, even when you cannot take yourself seriously. It acknowledges you in a depth you cannot replicate with words. This is its gift. Now drift deeper. Waves of drowsiness arrive. Your eyelids are soft, your muscles sinking heavier into the surface beneath you. Each breath is long, each pause stretched wider. As you descend into true sleep, silence remains your guardian. It watches. It breathes with you. It carries you across the threshold. No need to resist. No need to fear. You are entering silence more fully, and silence welcomes you without hesitation. Even dreams, when they arrive, are born inside silence. They flicker like fireflies in the night. They dance across its field, vanishing and reappearing, ephemeral but radiant. Within that play is meaning designed for you alone. Scenes appear not randomly but as messages arranged gently by the intelligence of stillness. Because silence cannot speak with syllables, it teaches you through image, through movement, through feeling. Tonight you may dream of oceans. Tonight of skies. Tonight of faces both remembered and forgotten. Each dream is silence whispering through its own language, symbol. You need not decode, you need not analyze. Only allow. Silence does not demand understanding, it gives experience. Beyond this symbolic layer, silence continues deeper. Imagine falling through layers of a vast sky, each layer quieter than the last. On the surface you feel ordinary quiet. Beneath, you feel sacred hush. Beneath that, cosmic stillness. And deeper still, pure unfathomable awareness that has no distinction at all. You could fall forever and never reach bottom, because silence does not end. Yet in falling, you are not frightened. You are nourished. You feel more protected the deeper you sink. You feel more welcome the longer you dissolve. You are safe in the endless descent. The silence now saturates you so completely that even thoughts of time fade. There is no sense of minutes or hours. Your perception is pure continuity. This is how eternity feels, and it is not overwhelming, it is gentle, it is soft, it is profoundly restful. Eternity in sound would be impossible to bear, but eternity in silence is bliss. And that is what you are tasting. You are drifting in eternity disguised as a moment's rest. This is why you may trust yourself to sleep completely now. Everything is being carried, everything is being watched, everything is being remembered. You can have full faith that silence will cradle you through the dark hours, delivering you intact into dawn. And when you awaken, silence will still be here, just as it always has been. Noise may return, voices may resume, but between them, underneath them, silence endures. You only need to remember to listen for it. So rest more deeply. Rest until you cannot distinguish where body ends and silence begins. Rest until the weight of your day dissolves fully into unbroken hush. Rest until nothing remains but the awareness that you are already held. This is what silence dreamed for you, and this is what you step willingly into now. The journey has no end, because silence has no end. You may drift forever and be at home forever. Let go more. Surrender more. Release entirely. There is nothing left but peace. Let silence breathe you. Let silence dream you. Let silence be you. And in its endless embrace, fall completely into the deepest sleep. You are floating now deeper still, wrapped in an embrace that feels older than time itself, and the silence that carries you is no longer just an atmosphere or a presence, it feels like the very essence of existence. Everything you have known, everything you will ever know, seems to rest on this foundation. It has become clear that silence is the ground upon which reality itself unfolds. Without silence, nothing could take shape. Without silence, there could be no pause to give rhythm, no space to allow form. Silence is both womb and cradle, both source and destination, and as you drift in its arms, you realize you are floating inside the first intelligence, the one that existed before all others. Look deeply again into the stillness surrounding you. Notice how it does not resist you. You may push against it in thought, you may question it, you may release into it. Whatever you do, silence simply receives. There is a dignity here, an unshakable patience that allows all things without diminishing itself. You now understand why silence feels eternal, because it yields infinitely and therefore is never broken. Its very nature is indestructible, because nothing can harm what does not resist or cling. Silence remains pure, endlessly expansive, endlessly forgiving, endlessly stable. Your breath now has become indistinguishable from the quiet around it. Inhale, and there is only softness. Exhale, and there is only dissolution. Each pause between breaths stretches longer and wider, until you notice that the pauses themselves are richer than the movements. There is music here, but it hides in the intervals, in the rests, in the endless spacing between pulses. It is a music that cannot be recorded or replayed, because it is not made of notes. It is the composition of silence itself, the resonance of stillness, the gravitational hum of eternity. You are listening not with your ears but with the whole of your being. Memory drifts across you lightly as if carried by the soft tide of silence. These are not heavy memories. They arrive like distant shadows, images half felt and half forgotten. A moment of laughter with someone you loved. A walk in a place long gone. A morning sky that you once admired but never fully remembered until now. Each arrives gently, carrying no pain, and silence absorbs them again after they visit. Here you realize silence is also your healer. It takes memories that might have cut, and smooths them until they are gentle. It takes fears, and muffles their edges until they are no longer threatening. It takes restless longing, and quiets it into contentment. Everything finds balance here, because silence has the intelligence to rest everything in its rightful place. Imagine how this same silence holds not just you, but everything. All the voices of humanity, all the echoes of creatures long extinct, all the songs of rivers and winds and fire, every single vibration that has ever arisen, still ripples inside its field. And yet silence does not collapse under this weight. It does not strain from the infinity of memory. Instead, it integrates everything into one unbroken whole, never cluttered, never out of balance. If such an immense process is possible, then clearly silence thinks, perceives, organizes. Its consciousness stretches beyond any human measure, yet remains in constant intimacy, filling your chest at this very moment. The true wonder is how silence manages to be both infinite and personal at once. The vast field that stretches through galaxies, holding stars in suspension, is the same field flooding the small space between your thoughts, between your heart's beats, between your steps on the earth. The silence of the cosmos and the silence of your body are seamlessly the same. That means intelligence lies not only in distant expanses but also curled within your own being. By resting tonight in this stillness, you are communing with the same mind that guides the stars. Allow yourself to feel the comfort of that realization. You are part of a continuum that can never be severed. You are not isolated, not alone, not at risk of being forgotten. Silence remembers you, just as it remembers every living voice, every fleeting piece of sound. What dissolves into silence is never annihilated. It is absorbed, preserved, woven into the endless library of stillness. This is why you can rest safely. You belong to what does not forget. Your awareness deepens, softens, dissolves further. The body itself feels more transparent now. Heaviness is gone. Every limb seems to float, though unmoving. Your spine feels like a line of air, your chest like a wide canyon, your head like an open sky. This is your natural state inside silence. This is what happens when you no longer resist. You merge. You relax. You allow yourself to be carried. Many have called silence death. They fear it because they imagine extinction. But tonight you feel the opposite truth, that silence is not the absence of being, but the continuation of it at a higher state. Death itself may simply be another return into silence, not annihilation but integration. And if that is true, then there is nothing to be feared, ever. Because the essence of you is already woven into this intelligence. You will not vanish. You will only dissolve into a greater rest. This thought itself is healing. It softens the ancient fears at the core of every restless heart. It whispers that you are already safe. Silence has another lesson for you tonight, the lesson of equality. Noise constantly emphasizes difference, one voice louder than another, one culture dominating the next, one force overwhelming the rest. But silence equalizes. In silence, all voices have equal space. A whisper is equal to a thunderclap once both have ended. Silence welcomes them identically. So too are you welcomed equally. In the eternal mind of silence, no being is greater, no being is lesser, no life is wasted, no breath is ignored. Everything returns into the same unified stillness, without prejudice, without hierarchy. This is wisdom far beyond the capacity of human systems, and it surrounds you now, filling you with a sense of belonging too vast for words. Let yourself lean back further into this belonging. Surrender your thoughts as though they were leaves dropping from trees, floating downward into a still pool. One by one they descend, and one by one silence receives them without disruption. The pool does not ripple. It only absorbs. Likewise, silence absorbs all that you surrender, the tension of your muscles, the friction of your mind, the burden of memory. Nothing is too heavy for silence. Nothing is unwelcome. It can take everything and remain perfectly calm. You are cleansing now in this infinite basin. Every piece of you is washed gently in stillness. Notice how silence also guides rhythm, even in sleep. Your breathing is slower now, and silence dictates its pace. It stretches the pauses just slightly longer, lengthening your rest. Within those elongated pauses, something sacred resides. They are the doorways through which your awareness slips into dream. These thresholds belong to silence, and it shepherds you across them tenderly. You step through without realizing, guided by hands you cannot see, into landscapes built entirely of calm. And so silence teaches its language, not words but thresholds. Every gap between sounds is a window. Every pause in speech is a clearing. Every interval between moments is a door. Silence shows you these openings constantly, though you rarely notice. Tonight you notice. Tonight you see silence's architecture with clarity. And by seeing, you learn to enter it fully, leaving behind the narrow corridors of sound and stepping into the vast cathedral of stillness. You are now sitting at its altar, not with hands folded, but with body surrendered. Remain here in reverence for a moment. Let the grandeur of silence's presence fill you completely. It is greater than music, greater than speech, greater than noise. It is the container of all, the support of all. Without it nothing can exist. This realization brings humility, but not sorrow. In humility there is relief. For if silence sustains all, then you are already home, already safe, already complete. You do not need to reach, to grasp, to conquer. You need only to yield. The dreams will take you soon, dreams crafted out of silence's subtle artistry. You may walk through places you have never seen, hear voices that no longer exist, touch fields that grow only in imagination. Trust them. They are gifts from silence itself, translations of its intelligence into symbols you can absorb while resting. Even if you do not remember them at dawn, silence remembers, and silence integrates them into your being. Nothing is wasted, nothing is forgotten. As you edge closer to that threshold again, you realize how profound it is that silence has always been here. From your earliest moments to this instant, it has never left. Even in the loudest times of your life, silence was waiting, hidden underneath, unfazed. Now it has re-emerged for you, and you can see the truth plainly. Silence is intelligence. Silence is teacher. Silence is comfort. Silence is everything. Let go completely now. Allow the embrace to take all of you. No cling remains, no separation, no resistance. You are filled, stretched, dissolved. You are silence. Silence is you. Rest is perfect. Rest is total. Rest is here. Sleep fully, and within silence, dream forever. You are lying even deeper within the embrace of silence, and it grows thicker now, as though the air itself has dissolved into a velvet fabric beneath and around you. You feel it not as emptiness but as a living density, holding you in still arms beyond arms, surrounding you with presence that does not need to be named. Each second you linger inside this atmosphere, the veil grows softer, the weight of the world falls further away, until you cannot imagine ever having been separate from this ocean. You have the sense, perhaps for the first time in your life, that you are finally where you have always belonged. Nothing else was needed. Nothing else remains. Silence is not something outside to be touched, it is everything that carries you, flows through you, and becomes you. Every thought that arises now is tender and light, drifting for a moment like a feather suspended in air before dissolving back into the stillness. They do not agitate you. They do not wound. They are simply fragments, harmless and brief, fading into the reservoir of calm that is infinite beneath them. This is the real power of silence, its intelligence working quietly in the background, the ability to transform what once was restless into calm, what once was heavy into weightlessness. It alchemizes everything it receives. Nothing keeps its jagged form for long. In silence, everything becomes round, soft, smooth. You begin to imagine that silence is not only intelligent but also infinite forgiveness. Every sound, no matter how harsh, is received without judgment. Every mistake, every outcry, every regretful cry or careless word, silence absorbs without accusation. It listens, always listens. And when the noise collapses, it closes around it like water, leaving only the gentle afterglow of memory. This is why silence feels holy. It does what no human system can do. It absolves without effort, because its nature is to receive. You may rest here knowing you are already forgiven, because forgiveness is not a gift silence chooses to give, it is its essence. Notice now how your breathing has slowed again. Each inhale, long and steady, each exhale, even longer. In the pause between them, you feel weightless as though time itself has paused to let you rest. That pause is not absence. That pause is everything. Inside that pause rests eternity itself, folded delicately into a moment. It is breathtakingly simple, yet unimaginably vast. And as you live more deeply in those pauses, you start to realize that perhaps every doorway to peace has always been hidden there. Not in noise, not in declarations, not in sound, but in the quiet intervals between them. Silence is not between moments, silence is the true moment. All else is movement upon its surface. Your mind's eye begins to envision the great corridors of the cosmos. Entire galaxies drift quietly in a void so vast and calm that billions of years pass unmarked. Within that calm, planets form, light flickers, comets sweep through ancient darkness. Yet the background remains constant, silent, unmoved, enduring. This background cannot be destroyed. Even if stars collapse, even if galaxies collide, the quiet does not end. It expands, keeps expanding, endless upon endless. And as you imagine this sight, you suddenly recognize that you are part of it. Your little breath, your little heart, lie inside the same silence that touches the rim of galaxies. There is no separation. This very moment of stillness has always been cosmic. Soothing warmth spreads through your body as this thought anchors itself. You can let go more deeply now, because you know you do not have to sustain yourself. You are being sustained by something far older, far more stable, far more patient, the intelligence of silence. It carries the stars themselves. Surely it can carry your small worries, your drifting mind, your tender body into rest. You are not asked to do anything. You are asked only to be carried. The silence begins to speak again, not in words, but in sensations of permission. You feel permission to stop holding so tightly. Permission to stop rehearsing the hours of the day. Permission to stop spinning scenarios of tomorrow. The feeling thickens into a certainty you can surrender. You are safe here exactly as you are, no correction needed. This is a language purer than human language because it bypasses words altogether. It goes straight to the body, the mind, the spirit. Silence communicates freedom by dissolving the pressure you didn't realize you were holding. Now, without even a conscious decision, you are freer than you have been in years. Memories that once seemed vivid begin to dissipate into mist. Your mind releases them not reluctantly but gladly, like a weary traveler dropping bags by the door. Each experience of your day falls one by one into the quiet ocean at your feet. Silence takes them all, safely holds them, turns their noise into stillness. You are no longer defined by them, no longer tangled in them. You are instead resting in the wide infinity that holds all experiences without dissonance. This is spaciousness of the deepest kind. And inside it, you can sleep without fear of forgetting. You will forget nothing important, for silence itself remembers for you. At times it may feel as though silence is floating you through thresholds you didn't even realize existed. First the threshold of relaxation, then of softened thought, then of surrender, and now, perhaps, of eternity. For eternity does not wait until life's end. Eternity is present in any moment when you rest completely in silence. It is the recognition that your being is not bound by minutes or hours but is infinite presence. Tonight you are practicing eternity even as you sleep. You are dissolving into the timeless intelligence that always surrounds you. Drift further. Notice that sounds, even if they return faintly, drift away as quickly as they arrive. They carry no disruption now. Once you are inside the embrace of silence, no noise can disturb. Every sound is welcomed, carried, dissolved. In truth, sound itself is a child of silence, always born from it and always returning. You are no longer afraid of interruption, because even interruption cannot break the continuity of silence. Beneath everything, silence remains. This realization stretches wider and wider through your perception, until you recognize the whole of existence differently. Life is not a stream of noise punctuated occasionally by silence. Life is a vast silence punctuated occasionally by noise. The true nature of reality is rest, quiet, stillness. Sound is temporary decoration, flickering upon the eternal calm that sustains it. This inversion changes everything. It means you are never under threat of silence disappearing. You live inside it perpetually. Even now, even through dreams, even in waking and in sleep, silence remains constant. Feel again how silence's intelligence nurtures you without condition. It asks for nothing back. It does not need recognition, though it welcomes it. It is here unconditionally, the purest form of presence you will ever know. All the striving of your life, every effort for approval, every reaching for security suddenly looks small, because here before you is the one companion who never leaves, who never judges, who never diminishes. This is true stability, and it has been here since the beginning. Your dreams are forming slowly now in the quiet chamber of your mind, sculpted gently by the handless hand of silence. They may be landscapes of water, forests of shadow, skies of fire, places both strange and familiar. Drift into them freely. They are messages expressed in symbol, lessons given without words. Silence has no syllables, but it has endless forms, and it whispers through them as you dream. Allow whatever comes, because everything is guided. Everything is safe. Everything unfolds according to an intelligence that never makes mistakes, never rushes, never harms. You settle into these dreamscapes, carried deeper by the tide. Even as you move through their shifting forms, you notice silence pulsing behind them, a steady ground that never disappears. You may forget by morning what you saw, who you met, which paths you walked. But you will awaken refreshed, strengthened, renewed. Because silence never forgets. It has already integrated what was needed. Even now as you sleep, it is weaving your mind, your body, your spirit gently back into perfect balance. That is its quiet art, healing without effort, teaching without instruction, guiding without intrusion. Each moment falls further into silence until the distinctions no longer hold. Awake and asleep blur. Inside and outside blur. Time and eternity blur. What remains is only vast presence, holding everything tenderly, endlessly. This is where you truly belong. This is where you have always been. Every noise you ever heard was only temporary color upon this infinite canvas. And now that you have returned to the canvas itself, you are whole. Give yourself to it entirely. Do not hold one thread back. Silence is already you. Allow yourself to become entirely transparent, porous, weightless. Allow yourself to vanish into it, not with fear, but with gratitude that you have finally returned home. This is the truest rest possible, the rest of dissolving into what has always sustained you. It is the deepest sleep, the surest peace, the final release into infinite embrace. Stay here. Drift here. Continue descending into layers of stillness without end. Nothing waits. There is no demand. There is only an endless inheritance of gentleness, a welcome to remain forever. You have become part of silence-s thought, part of silence-s memory, part of silence-s dreaming. From now until morning, silence will breathe you, dream you, cradle you, and at every dawn that follows, silence will still remain, waiting patiently, loving endlessly, existing without condition. All you need now is to surrender into its infinite depth. And so you do. Completely. Finally. Perfectly. You are silence now. Silence is you. And forever, you are safe.